And once again, welcome to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today in the studio is Ann Joseph, Mortgage Loan Officer of Norcom Mortgage. Also joining me is Robert Nichols, Real Estate Broker, owner of Boston Trust Realty Group. Thank you both for having me here today on Living in the 21st Century.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
It
us.
seems like we are in the world today of finance and real estate. So my first question goes out to you, Ann. What really got you into the world of loans and finance and so forth?
Well, I started real estate in 2014. I took a break and I started doing loans and actually like doing loans a little bit better. But now I'm doing both, so that's what really got me started. I was in the industry a little bit longer before loans, and then I figured why not do both?
Well, that's a combination of both, and it sounds pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, so what kind of loan products do you really offer?
Well, we offer FHA. We have first-time home buyers programs. We have 203Ks for people who want to do renovations, construction loans. We have refinancing loans, conventional investments, mass housing, a bunch of loan products.
Okay. And basically, for someone who's getting a loan for the first time, what kind of documents would someone who's now going into their mortgage for the first time, what would they have to look at filling out?
Well, some basic documents to get would basically be the last 2 years of your tax returns, the last 2 years of your W-2s, to make sure that you have a good credit history, kind of clean up your credit a little bit.
Yes.
The last 2 months of your bank statements and the last month of your pay stubs. Or if you don't have your pay stubs, make sure you have all your Schedule C's on your tax returns and everything, and all the Schedules A, everything on your tax returns, basically.
Okay. And Robert, same question goes out to you. What really caught your concentration into real estate?
I'd say, I was working in corporate at the time for a local grocery chain as a manager, and a friend of mine, also a family friend, was in the business and came to me and said, Robert, you really should look at real estate as a career. And this is when I first got out of college back in 2003. And so I said, all right, I kind of put it off for a little bit, and then I started doing some research and talking to him and really learning more about the industry. And based on my research, and I ended up buying my first property at that time, I saw the agent that assisted me. I felt like I could actually do a better job than she did in helping me. And I was doing a lot of the work myself anyway, so I said, you know what, if I can navigate this process and provide a high level of service, I think I have a chance at making this a career. And so from there, I got my license, and that was in 2005, and I've been in the industry ever since.
Okay. Well, there's one thing I recognize, well, even more recent, is that there are very less buyers in the market for homes. And rather than those prices for homes drop, this seems to be skyrocketing. What causing the value of these homes to just go up like that?
A great question. I think the biggest thing right now is the lack of inventory. There are just too few homes on the market based on the needs of the buyers who are out here. So we have tons of buyers looking, very few homes available, and that creates an environment where there's limited supply and tons of demand. And so from there, basic economics show us you're going to have bidding wars, you're going to have people really competing and just pushing values up. And then the other factor is that rates are historically still low. Even though they've ticked up a little bit this year, they're still low enough to where buyers are very motivated to buy. And in many cases, like in the city of Boston, that actually costs you less to buy than it does to rent.
Well, I could agree to that.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So what are some of the most outstanding methods a person can really use to get their house built there? Because there are so many of them. To me, it seems like people are just losing their homes all the time. And more on the renting aspect of things, more apartments are going up and so forth. What can a person really do to make their house outstanding that someone would want to say, listen, it's a beautiful house here, man. Let me go and check it out and see if we can get pre-qualified for a loan or something. What are some of those methods?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, when you're first starting off with selling, you want to make sure you bring in a professional to make sure the pricing is appropriate based on the home. And then they'll also be able to advise you on what you need to do as far as staging and different things as far as setting the home up to show in its best light. And you know, the other piece is just making sure you get the home the maximum exposure, because as a seller in this market, you don't want to leave anything on the table. So making sure everybody's seeing it, making sure it's showcased in its best light, and that it's priced appropriately. And last but not least, you're providing an incentive for agents to show it in the form of a commission. You know, if you do those four things, you should be really setting yourself up for success.
Well, this question goes to either one of you. If a person has a house that somewhat still in the embryonic stages of finances, where they still own 75% of the mortgage to the bank, and they want to sell that house, but they want to get something off of it, in this time of market season, is there a possibility that they can appropriate price their house, that they can still make something off of it, or they have to bring it down to the lowest to get that kind of gravitational buyer who would want to buy it?
Yep.
Which one really is it? It's a tough question, right? So you owe probably 75% of the home to the bank.
Yep.
And like anybody with sense would want to sell their house, to
Right.
make some form of a profit, even if it's that little. They want something back for themselves. After
Right.
all, they would have injected something in it before.
Yep. That makes sense.
How can they appropriately price that house in a competitive market and still make something for themselves?
Right, because obviously you have fees and commissions and different things that are going to eat away at that 25%.
Right.
So, you know, it depends on the person's needs. You know, some people will do a cash out refi, and I think Ann can speak more to how much the ratio would be as far as how much they can take out. But if they do want to sell and try to keep the cost down, I mean, I think, you know, pricing it obviously competitively with an agent that understands that we need to protect the value is very important. That piece right there will help get them as much as they can. You know? And so, but I think the other option in that instance would be to also think about doing a cash out refi or home equity line of credit, depending on what they were looking to do with that money.
Okay. Well, this question goes out to you, Ann.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person want to get an home equity loan on their property, but with the intentions like months down the road, I'm going to sell this thing. Even if it means their credit gets spoiled or whatever the case may be, but they want to suck something out of this for themselves. How do the bank view that? The person come in getting on a home equity loan, but with the intentions that as soon as they get that money, they're going to sell their house. Just in the event that they have the house out there for months or probably years trying to get it sold, they have some financial substance for themselves. Is this a smart move for a home buyer?
It can be, but the smartest thing to do is if you're planning to sell is doing the cash out refinancing, which is my specialty too. I like doing it because you save a lot of money doing that, and if you're planning on selling, you know you're gonna sell, you're gonna get a lot of cash for your house. So.
But the home equity loan, would that be based on what value you have in the house, what equity you have in the house?
Well, my bank doesn't do home equity loans.
Okay.
So that's not my specialty.
Okay. Okay. What happens after the client receives the pre-approval for a house?
So after they get the pre-approval, they can really go out with a real estate agent and go out looking for houses, really house hunting, get really into it. They can put the offer down with the pre-approval letter to show the seller that they're a very serious buyer. And once the offer gets accepted, they can start doing the home inspection and really start the lending process.
So as long as the home pre-approved, as long as you are pre-approved, it's somewhat a form of a guarantee that the bank will finance
Yes.
you. No turning back.
Yes, there's really no turning back,
Okay.
but obviously no 100% guarantee, but definitely more definite to say on a letter that they can buy this house.
Okay.
Instead of just saying word of mouth, I can buy this house, the bank is saying that they can. So.
Okay.
the seller will see that letter and take them more seriously.
Okay. How many homes, Robert, should a person look at before? I don't know, man. How many? I mean, for me, I look at quite a bit before I actually made my final analysis. But what do you think is a good number that a person should look at before they make a decision in purchasing a home?
I think, the first thing in today's climate, you have Zillow, you have Trulia, you have all these portals where you can kind of browse and get a sense as to what's out there based on what you're looking for. So I always advise clients to start their search online, which according to statistics, about 99% of buyers start online, so that you get a sense as to what homes you can, based on what you can afford, kind of meet your needs. And then the second thing is I say do drive-bys just to get familiar with the areas, familiar with the homes that kind of pique your interest so that you're really educated. And by the time you call me to show you the home or an agent, you are kind of a step ahead of the curve and you kind of have a better sense as to what you want, what you like, and you know this house kind of meets those needs. So I've had clients literally, first house we've seen, make an offer. I've sold over 150 homes over the years, and I've had that happen about 2 times. So it's very rare. It's not common. However, on average, I've showed most buyers anywhere between, I'd say, 4 to 8 homes before they're ready to make a decision. And I've had some who it's taken years for them to go through the process and find something that fits their needs. But case by case, but on average, I'd say 4 to 8, especially when you do that upfront homework to really educate yourself on what's out there.
Okay. How important is it for both the seller and buyer to have an attorney present amidst their transactions when it comes to purchasing a home?
I think is super important on both sides, just so there's, obviously it limits the liability on my part or any agents involved, but more importantly, make the sellers sure or the buyers that the documents and everything is in their best interest at the end of the day, because you want a legal expert looking at anything that's in writing as the transaction progresses towards a final agreement, because once that document's signed, that purchase and sales, it's a point of no return. And you don't want to get into a situation where something was overlooked and then everybody's looking to point fingers. If you have an attorney that on your behalf, the likelihood of that happening is less, and you have that protection.
And it just gives you like a peace of mind, just knowing that somebody's protecting you. This is the work that they do to see every line. You don't know every term of the contract, so you might as well have that backup.
What are some of the out-of-pocket expenses straight up that a buyer will have to got ready if they're going to buy a home?
Well, like the home inspection fee, the appraisal report, closing costs, but most of that is covered by the seller. So some of those expenses.
Right, and the only other one that a lot of people always, the buyers always forget this, and a lot of agents forget to tell their buyers about this, the home insurance for the first year. You have to pay that before the closing. You don't need that up front, and it's the very last thing, as Ann knows, before the closing occurs. But a few days before closing, you usually get that insurance binder. So that can kind of sneak up on people. That's why we give them a kind of a timeline as to what the process looks like and what they have to do.
But most of the time, that's paid by the bank for the year, and then that's part of the mortgage.
After that, that's
you
correct.
pay it monthly, so it's not coming out of your pocket, out of upfront.
And this is the insurance?
The homeowner's insurance.
Well, I had to pay my cash up front, but that's okay. What happens though after the offer has been accepted and the PNS has been signed? Where do we go from there?
That's when we really get into the lending process. The documents get signed. We make sure everything gets to the bank. This is when we really start the lending process, because of pre-qualification, it's like, and then you get the loan estimate, we get everything rolling, the ball rolling, and then like a month and a half or even a month, if everything goes well, you close on your house.
Okay, pretty good. Yeah. So what do the increases of mortgage fees, how does that affect the value of someone's home?
So historically, as rates go up, values will go down, just based on affordability. I mean, as a society, we are very price conscious as far as what our mortgage cost is per month and what we're going to be paying. And so from that perspective, once rates go up, the affordability factor kicks in, and buyers are not able to afford it as much as on the mortgage as they, if it at a 4% rate versus a 6% rate, maybe it'll drop about, let's say 10% in value. If you go from, 400 or 400 to 380, something like that, it's about a 5% drop. But I think that's really what is going to eventually tip the market. I was reading an article, and some economists were saying that once we hit 6%, that's when we'll start to see a noticeable difference in values, and we're a while from that. It could be a couple years out before we get to a 6% mortgage rate. So, yep.
Okay. And what are some of the best seasons you think a person should engage in purchasing a home?
So, as far as that goes, that's one of my favorite questions. I think that, spring is the ideal time if you want to find a home that fits all of your needs. If you're looking for that dream house, that home with all the bells and whistles and the granite, the stainless steel, you want to be out here in spring, because sellers know that's when buyers come out. The weather's turning, people are active, and school year's ending and all those things. Not too many people are on vacation, so everyone's around, and that's when you have a high percentage of buyers looking, high percentage of sellers selling. And on the flip side, if you want the best deal, the winter market is the best market. And that's because there aren't that many homes out there, not as many buyers, so it's less competition.
Right.
And typically people who are selling in the winter are selling, they may be selling under duress, they're selling for reasons a lot of times that are out of their control. Because ideally they'd want to wait till the spring to maximize their profit. So if you want a great deal, winter is great, but I will caution you, I'll tell you, you may find some ugly ducklings in the winter. Those houses are going to need a lot of love. And so if you're really ready to roll up your sleeves and, do some work and get a contractor involved, and you want a deal, then the winter market is for you. But if you're looking for that dream home, that home you just come in and it sells itself and just move right in and enjoy, spring is when you want to look.
Okay. What type of houses do a bank prefer to invest in? One that a person just buy that needs a lot of fixing up, or some home that you can just actually move into and start to live in? What do the bank have any kind of speculations when it comes to purchasing a home? What do they like to invest their money into? One that is nice, neat, fitting, ready, or one that a person is going to have to get enough funds to fix it up?
Well, if you're trying to get, like, for example, an FHA loans, FHA loans are very strict with their guidelines. So if the house is like a rehab, you will not qualify for it unless you do a 203K FHA, which is a construction loan, which means that you're working with a contractor to fix the house once you get it. So if you're trying to get move-in ready, that's an FHA loan. But if it's not, you can get a 203K.
Okay.
And one thing I want to add to that too, the time it takes to close. I know you can attest to this as well. And if you're going with a regular loan and a beautiful home, I mean, we can get that, typically close those in 30 days. But once it comes to a rehab loan or something that needs work, sometimes it could take longer. It could be even double the time, 60 days to close. So obviously the banks like that cleaner deal. You get in, they can close, they have an appraisal, no issues, there's no punch list. So from that perspective, it is obviously easier to move quickly.
Okay. Well, here's the thing, and one question we'd love to ask. Now, the business of people investing in homes and flipping homes.
Which is Robert's specialty.
It's huge over there. It seems to be everyone nowadays have a book that they publish about flipping homes.
Right.
And I think the chances of making more money in the books and selling those books are greater than more greater.
They're making the money on the
flipping homes. So
very true.
So tell me something. Is it really feasible for people in this time and season get involved in the purpose of buying homes and flipping homes? As a matter of fact, I think probably 7-8 years ago, I'm quite sure that Donald Trump had some seminar here in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
On flipping homes and this kind of stuff, and he came to Boston to advise people and this kind of thing.
Trump University. And he got sued for it too.
Right. So, but that's true. That's true. So here's the thing. Because I believe people standing currently to business ventures, not really thinking of the consequences that can follow thereafter, especially when sweet salesmen with nice flattering words, just like Trump and his people that used to go out there and try to market him. What advice would you say to people who want to, especially in the season, that want to buy homes and flip homes and look to make a profit?
You know, my wife and I, we flip homes. You know, I'm a broker, but we're also investors, and I've been doing that since 2009.
Okay.
With partners and, you know, with my wife as well. And, you know, different seasons require different approaches.
Okay.
And so that's, you know, I think this particular season, the risks and the stakes are higher. While properties are selling for a higher price point on the back end, you also have to buy it very high. So if you buy it high, you want to try to sell it high, but sometimes the return is just not there, and you have to be very, very careful to that end on buying, right? So it can be done. We're doing it, but it is very risky because you have to put up a lot more capital to do it in today's climate.
Okay.
Yep.
So it is really based on your professional advice. You think it's somewhat high risk in this time of season. Actually think about getting into buying and flipping. Now, I think that could probably got a geographical touch on it also.
Right.
In Chicago, man, there are thousands and thousands of houses. I mean, I think some people probably giving them up for free. Who knows?
Right.
Would you advise anyone to get into that kind of market? Not only in terms of the geographical difference, but it is a heavily dense, crime-oriented destination also.
Right.
But would you advise people to, because those homes are cheap, you can probably fix them much cheaper and still make them readily available for someone to move into? What would be your advice to a person looking at, not just Chicago, but
any
similar
market? Yeah, like that. The first thing I always say when I hear that, I've been asked this question many times over the years, and I always say, just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's good. And so from that perspective, you really want to make sure that the property itself has a margin. It meets a certain ratio. Right. And you want to make sure whoever is giving you that valuation is a source you can trust, someone that's experienced and knows what they're talking about. Because it's easy for them to say, oh yeah, if it's an agent who just wants to make the sale, yeah, you'll get this return in the end, just so they can make a commission. Right. And then you get stuck holding the bag with that property and fighting foreclosure and facing all types of legal issues and financial issues that you may not be able to recover from. So I think if you have the right team in place in that market, then it definitely reduces your risk greatly. But if you're looking, you know, the grass is always green on the other side, as they say. If you're looking from Boston, looking at that market with limited access, limited experience, and you really don't have the team in place, there's really, I would not advise it. Okay. Yeah, but would not advise it.
Okay. Question we're back to, Anne, and this is pertaining to equity loans. Now, is there a standard to how much a person can borrow on their property? Is there a limitation in an equity loan based on if it is still owed for, or if you still owe the, or it's, let's say if it is free, if it is clear of debt and you don't owe a bank for it, what is the limitations on an equity loan for that? Can you get a higher percentage then as to if you still owe a bank for it?
No, you can't. No.
Okay.
Yeah, the ratio doesn't change.
No.
If the max you can get is 80%, whether you have, you know, let's say no loan on it, or you have, you know, 50% of the equity in the loan, you can get 30. If you have no loan, you can get up to that 80, but you cannot pass that threshold.
Okay. So let's say a person secure 80% of equity loan.
Yep.
And decide, you know what, I'm going to buy a next home with that money. But obviously, this home that you got the equity loan from is now in debt, not only to the original loan that you would have borrowed, but now also to the bank in which you get the equity loan from, or maybe from the same bank. Who knows? The one that you've bought free, right? That is not in debt to no one, that cannot be touched under no circumstances. Is that correct?
Under a homestead, you would have protection if you live in it. But if you don't live in it, you know, the creditors can come and potentially force you to sell, and it can get tied up in a foreclosure action. your primary residence is, but you have more protection. But if you don't live in that new house you purchase, there won't be any initial lien on it, but they could definitely attach something to it to restrict you and get involved. Yeah.
So is it me? So therefore, are you trying to say that the person will have to be living in both homes?
You got to pick one if you're trying to. Yeah.
Or they can use this other home as an invested property.
Right. So it can be used as investment property with no legal issues, but if you fall behind on the first mortgage, then they would attach it. But there would be no, as long as you pay that loan that you took on the first one, there'd be no issues. I have many clients who've done that over the years, who leverage equity in their homes to buy the next investment, and they just keep rolling it over. I have one guy, he did it about 6 times in the course of about 8 years.
And it worked pretty well?
Oh, it worked out excellent. He's in Costa Rica right now, living a dream life.
Well, no, that sounds pretty good to you.
Yeah, he did it right. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we're in our last 3 minutes of the show, but I would love you to state clearly to those who are buying or selling a home, what are the advantages and disadvantages they should be looking for in this case?
Excellent. Well, the first thing I want to say, especially I want to speak to the buyers. In a competitive market that we have right now, you want to make sure your offer, you do everything in your power to make your offer stand out. And one way that doesn't get talked about much is a love letter. And it's basically a letter that you write and attach it to your offer that expresses your emotional attachment to the home. Whatever you like about the home, or if you can envision your family in the home in the future, and all of those things. Because if you can make an emotional connection, it doesn't always work, but it will increase your odds of getting the home, and it shows the seller that you're truly committed to the process.
Beautiful, beautiful. And to you, Ann, what advice as a loans officer and someone who also is in the real estate business would you want to give to a client out there who may be looking to pursue in buying a home? What are the things they should look for?
Well, first of all, get informed, so you know what's out there. Get to know the market a little bit before you jump in. Just make sure that you stick with the process, because it can be easy and then it can be a little bit harder depending on your documents, what you need, what you're lacking. Just don't give up.
Okay.
And don't keep focusing on the rates. A lot of people keep focusing on the rate.
Okay.
But it's so much more. The lending process is so much more than just the rate. So just stick with the process and don't give up.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, we come to the end of our program, and I want to say thank you very much, Ann Joseph, Mortgage and Loans Officer from Norcom Mortgage, and Robert Nichols, Real Estate Broker, owner of Boston Trust Realty Group. I thank you both for joining me here this evening and explaining a little bit more about mortgages and finance. And for all those who are at home, I want to say thank you very much, and stay cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, may I please have an application? Thank you.
Skip the drama. Get your diploma.
Okay.
Take that first step towards a better future. Find free adult education classes at finishyourdiploma.org.